هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني.
My name is Taariq Ibn Buchanan. I want to first start by saying that all praises are for Allah. We ask Him to send salat and salam upon Nabi Muhammad, his family, his companions, and the Jama'ah. I first want to start by talking about what it was like being Muslim in prison, and what it was like, or what was my views of Islam, or what was the extent of my knowledge of Islam before my embracing of Islam. I knew very little about Islam before I embraced it and before I started to study the various elements of Islam. I guess everybody in America is pretty familiar with Malcolm X, and that was pretty much the extent of my knowledge of Islam. I watched the movie several times. It was a very good movie, but it didn't give me a real understanding of what Islam really is. It brought me more towards understanding the difference between the Nation of Islam and Orthodox Islam, and it was beneficial in that aspect. But my knowledge of Islam was very limited before I actually started to study the study of Islam. I view Muslims in prison as being different, a lot different from the standard inmates in prison, because they set themselves apart. You know, the level of discipline that they had, their level of unity was very obvious, and they gained a type of respect from the inmates as well as the officers and guards because of that. They always stuck together. They would always be seen together. They would always be seen walking together. They formed football teams together, basketball teams together, and soccer teams together to display a show of unity, you know, to the other inmates. And I guess, you know, in all actuality, it was a means of dawah, because that was something that I was drawn to. That was something that attracted me to them. And I befriended a brother. His name was Juan Maz. We called him Khalid, and he was a Cuban, and he's serving right now a life sentence in prison. MashaAllah, you know, that's something that was a part of the decree of Allah, and inshallah he'll be relieved one day. But we became friends. We would work out together, and we would, you know, communicate together, and through his own mannerisms, he would give me dawah. I didn't know that's what it was then, but as I look back on it now, as I look back on our relationship, it was dawah that he was giving me. He never actually talked about Islam, or he never actually said that this is an Islamic principle, or this is an Islamic tenet. While at the same time, he was embedding in me different principles and elements of the religion. I started to go to Juma, and I started to attend the Taaliq studies, and in a way it was kind of discouraging, because, you know, everybody in the room, or everybody that was attending the classes, they wasn't Salafi. And at that time I didn't really understand the concept of Dawat al-Salafiyya. I didn't really understand the concept of being Sunni, because I read the Quran. I have a copy of the Quran, and I never seen in the Quran the actual word Sunni, where Allah Azza wa Jalla ordered the Muslims to call themselves Sunni, or where He said, you know, these are the Sunni Muslims, or these are the Shiite Muslims, or these are the Nation of Islam Muslims. So it kind of confused me at first, but as, you know, they took me up, you know, the Muslims who had some knowledge, the Muslims who was upon Dawat al-Salafiyya, they took me up under their wing. And one thing that I liked about them, and one thing that drew me to them, was that when they gave me some information, or when they would teach me an element of the religion, they presented the proofs to go with it. It wasn't like they were just telling me this is how it is, or this is how it was, and then this is what you have to run with. No, they gave me the proof, and they presented, you know, the dalils from the Quran and the Sunnah and the ijma of the scholars. And this is something that, you know, meant a lot to me, because I didn't just want to follow anything blindly. I just didn't want to get into something without having the proofs, or without having the correct knowledge of following it. So, you know, even before I embraced Islam, I understood the differences between some of the sects of Islam. Not all of them, and I still don't, because there's so many of them. But the major ones, I knew the differences, and I knew some of the elements, what started the differences. But I knew, and I said to myself then, if I ever embraced Islam, that inshallah I would be upon the Dawah to Salafiyya, because I seen that this is the religion that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught his companions. This is the religion that Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I would go to Juma, and I continued to go to Taaliq for about a year, and I was just searching. You know, Islam wasn't the only religion that I was studying or looking into. but it was the one I was most serious about. I wouldn't go to the Christian classes, I wouldn't go to the other religious classes, but I would, you know, go to the Taaleems every week, and I would be in Jumu'ah every week unless I had a scheduled doctor's appointment. I just couldn't be there. I would be there because I enjoyed it, and I liked the format of Jumu'ah. I liked how it was done. I liked how the Muslims would participate every week. I would always see the same Muslims there every week. They wouldn't not miss Jumu'ah because, of course, the obligation of it. And one Jumu'ah, the khutbah was, of course, about Tawheed because that's what the Imam would stress, and he would put emphasis on Tawheed. I don't think that he ever gave a khutbah that wasn't really about Tawheed. MashaAllah, and that's why I think I have a very keen and a strong understanding of the monotheism of Allah and the three elements. But one day after Jumu'ah, it wasn't something that was planned. It wasn't something that I rehearsed, or it wasn't something that was even on my mind. But I called the email to the back of the room because, of course, they didn't allow me to make salat with them. So I called him to the back of the room, and just out of the blue, I told him that I wanted to take my shahada. And from then on, I mean, it's been an uphill battle, of course, because now it really becomes an obligation upon me to do various tenets of the religion, which isn't really a burden, because Allah definitely doesn't burden a person beyond his scope. So everything that he has made an obligation to me and to you and to every Muslim is well within our scope. It's up to us as individuals to do it or to decide not to do it. I just decided to do it, and I think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has definitely blessed me in that category. So remember to be mindful that I was given a 30-year prison sentence, and I only served 13 years of it, mashallah. And I believe that that's definitely a sign from Allah that He's given me, and how else to thank Allah by continuing to stay within the limits that He has set for me as a Muslim, by striving to continue to acquire the knowledge of the Deen, of the authentic Deen, and just to continue, striving as a Muslim and thanking Allah. Now that I'm on the other side of the gates, but now that I'm on this side of the gates, I think that I have another responsibility. I think that I have another obligation. At least I'm placing this obligation upon myself, and that is to let the Muslims on the outside know what it's like on the inside for Muslims.